Thank you for having me here as part of your meeting here on Tuesday. I have to tell you, I was really looking forward to being here, partly because it was so rainy outside. It's just fantastic to be with a warm group of people. One thing I will say, if I get used to seeing this thing in front of me. One thing I wanted to tell you about was a little bit about my family life. You know, as we're here together, we have an opportunity not only to get to know each other, but to learn some things about Edmonds. And one of the things that I rarely get a chance to do is tell people a little bit about what my family life is like. I'm married to Margaret. She's a school teacher at Long Lake Terrace High School. And I have 4 children. Two of them are in college and 2 are still at Meadowdale High School. So we have a very busy and active household. And on one occasion, I wanted to pass in some important information, you know, from a dad to their kids, you know, important, you know, life lesson kind of things. And one of the things to know about our house is my boys, they all wrestle and they all play football. So if I was to write a story about my house, it would probably be something like dinner time as a contact sport. And I mean, that's just the way our activities are. They tend to be very aggressive, and the boys, they can get upset with each other really fast, and we have crazy times. So fortunately, my daughter, she took up swimming, and so it, you know, offers a completely different side of the athletic spectrum. But at any rate, as a dad, I was trying to impart some of that great wisdom that only dads can impart. And this was a few years ago when the teenagers, the 2 oldest ones, were like rolling their eyes as Dad is just presenting these gems of information. Fortunately, the younger ones were paying attention and they really wanted to get into it. I said, what is the easiest thing in the world to do? You know, so they're thinking, the older ones are rolling their eyes and the younger ones are trying to come up with an answer. And so they were the first ones saying, what is it? What is it, Dad? What's the easiest thing in the world to do? And I said, the easiest thing in the world to do is to complain. And they were, you know what? I didn't have to explain that to them. They knew what it's like to complain. You know, it was, you know, I'm hungry, I'm sad, you know, whatever it is. The easiest thing in the world to do is complain. So then I asked them the question, what could we do instead? Now that one was more difficult to come up with an answer for. And what I told them was, and again, this is under the banner of fatherly wisdom. I said, the thing that we can do instead is to be part of the solution. And that one required more thinking, but you know, fortunately they caught on to that idea. And I could ask them, you know, at least any time over the next few months, what's the easiest thing to do? And they'd say complain, and what do we want to do instead? And they said be part of the solution. And so today I am going to present some information that is not my own. They're, you know, considered to be facts, and you can complain as much as you want to about those facts, and that's okay. But what we want to work towards are some possibilities for the City of Edmonds. I'm going to share my opinions. Okay, that's what they are. They're not facts. They're just opinions. So let me just start off this way. Last year, the Alliance for Housing Affordability presented a draft of their population study for the City of Edmonds. This organization is part of a group, is funded through cities in Snohomish County to provide this kind of data for the participating cities. And so Edmonds is one of those cities. And by the way, that study is available on my website with a much more detailed article about this information that I'm presenting today. So there's much more there. As I go through the information here about what they're projecting for the City of Edmonds, I'd like you to just use your imagination and think about what Edmonds might be like in 20 years. Don't think about, let's say, the progression through the years, but think about what Edmonds might be like in 20 years. So 3 facts I want to start with from the Alliance for Housing Affordability. It said that in the year 2013, our population here in Edmonds was just under 40,000 people. 39,950. And that, that number is only slightly higher than the population in 2000. In that year, it was 39,544. So over that 13-year period of time, the city of Edmonds grew approximately 30 people per year over that 13-year period. Now, I don't know what you think about, you know, let's say growth, but that certainly doesn't match any figure that I would consider to be growth. So obviously over the last 13 years, from 2000 to 2013, we, as a population here in the city of Edmonds, we plateaued. There's not a lot of growth going on. However, in 2014 and 2015, both of those years, we've seen about 500 people per year move into the Edmonds area. So now we've bounced up over 40,000 people here in Edmonds, which means that we're starting to see some population growth. And it certainly shows up in the number of houses that are being built and new residential units here in the city. So that brings me to what the number of total housing units are in the city of Edmonds. And this comes from the 2010 census, and the number there was 17,396. So just a little over 17,000 households in Edmonds. So I'd like to just play a little game with you here and put on your thinking caps. And what I want you to think about with me is what percentage of those households, so what percentage of those 17,000 households had children in them? So is it A, 50%? Is it B, 35%? C, 25%? Or D, 15%? So lock in your votes. How many say A, 50%? 50%, okay. How about 35%? How many times? Okay, that's a good number. 25%? Okay, that's probably the biggest group. And 15%. Okay. The estimate there is 25%. 25% of the households. So only 1 out of 4 households in the city of Edmonds has school-aged children in them. I haven't studied this in particular, but remember, I'm going to be talking about the way some possible changes that we're looking forward to, but we need to realize that where we have been in the last 10 to 15 years here in Edmonds is probably not a good indicator of what we're going to be experiencing in the next 10 to 20 years. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I'm going over where we've been. The third piece is an observation about the number of households in Edmonds that are multifamily residents. So in the city of Edmonds, approximately 36% of the residential units in this city are multifamily. So our housing is of a higher density than you might ordinarily expect by driving around the city. That number of 36% compares to the rest of Snohomish County, which is 30%. So we are quite a bit higher percentage-wise with multifamily housing here in Edmonds. So what does the future hold? What does it look like in terms? Yes?
Multifamily includes condo units as multifamily?
That's right, yes. Yeah. So even a duplex would be considered multifamily. All right. So the projections for population growth just for Snohomish County is we are actually expected to be the fastest growing county in the state of Washington. Our growth rate is expected to be about 25%. So we would move from 800,000 to 1 million people over the next 20 years by 2035. The population in King County will probably exceed that 200,000 number, but the percentage growth will be less. So arguably, the impact in Snohomish County could be greater than what we would expect in Snohomish County or in King County. And it's not that different from other counties around the Puget Sound region. We are looking at a fairly significant population growth in the Puget Sound region, and that is going to have an impact in Edmonds as well. And one of the factors that I think all of us need to consider is this this trend is not something that's just something that's happening because we're such a fantastic place to move to. There are certainly the Seattle area, Edmonds, beautiful places to live. There are job opportunities, international trade opportunities, and all of that. But one of the things to realize is we can't just put up a "Don't move here" sign and people stop coming. This is a global phenomenon. This is something that's happening across the country. One of the things that I was looking at is where are these people coming from? The largest percentage of people are moving from California. So that's not a huge surprise. But what do you think is the number 2 state that people are moving from?
Texas.
Texas. When I heard that, I was very surprised. But the people are, again, coming here from other parts of the country because there are great opportunities here in the Pacific Northwest. So, what does that say about the future of Edmonds? What are some possible scenarios? Okay, so these are my best guesses, okay? And my guess is that you have some best guesses as well. But one of the things that we're looking at here is that in terms of growth, that 25% growth that we're expecting in Snohomish County is not going to be landing all in Edmonds. In fact, it's unlikely that we would see a 25% growth rate here in Edmonds. We're projecting probably somewhere between a 10 and 15% growth rate, which equates to about 6,000 new people here in the next 20 years. So 4,000 over 20 years? Well, so I'm going to use the figures here from the affordable housing, but in round numbers, over the next 20 years, about 6,000 people. So, and again, nobody knows the number absolutely for sure, but the point is that there will be a lot of growth in our area, and some of it will land here. The city of Everett is looking at about a 60% growth rate. Much of the planning is moving towards trying to shift population towards Everett, Marysville, and east from there. So even with 6,000 new people moving to Edmonds over the next 20 years, we're going to be adding somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 new homes here in the city of Edmonds, which equates to about 150 new homes over that period of time here in Edmonds. So 150, when you think about adding 150 new homes, that's somewhat doable. There are places where we could put 150 people, 150 new homes per year here in Edmonds. One of the interesting questions, though, is if we're putting in those kinds of homes, what percentage of them are going to be multifamily? Have you thought about that? Is it going to be at the same rate, like 36%, or could it bump up to 40 or even 50%? I think it could actually the percentage could bump up. And one of the questions that I've thought about quite a bit is what would it look like for us to have more multifamily housing here in Edmonds that not only attracts population but attracts it in a way that's very friendly to the city. So one of the well, let me just go to a second point here. Second thing I think that's likely to happen is we're likely to see more visitors here in Edmonds. Visitors from outside the city coming for entertainment, recreation, and shopping. I wanted to test this out, and during the campaign, I spent some time down on Sunset Avenue, and I wanted to get some impressions from people who were visiting our waterfront area. So they walk along the waterfront, come up to Sunset, around through downtown, and back to wherever they park their cars. And one of the things that I found was along Sunset Avenue, about 1 out of every 2 people was from outside of Edmonds. So people come not only to walk along Sunset Avenue, but they come for the view, they come for the recreation, and I can very easily imagine that there will be people from outside of our city gravitating more and more towards the recreation, the opportunities we have in downtown Edmonds. One of the things that this suggests to me is that as we're thinking about what kind of city we would envision and what we would like to have in 20 years, the kind of businesses, the kind of recreational opportunities that we add now will become very, very important for the kind of city that we have in the future. And so that, in my mind, creates an opportunity for us now as we are planning for the future. Are we going to add, let's say, concert venues, for music and for plays? Fortunately, we have the Edmonds Center of the Arts, which is a huge draw for our area. But what kinds of activities would be happening at the ECA that would cater to the visitors who come to Edmonds? Another opportunity along those lines are what kind of retail shops and what kind of retail establishments would do well here in Edmonds. Those retail establishments provide a very important tax base for our city. And as more residents move in, of course, they would be taking advantage of the retail opportunities, but so will the visitors. And so one of the questions is, what will we do to attract the kinds of retail businesses that cater to the people visiting here in the future? The third guess that I have about what's going to happen here is not going to surprise anyone. Okay. The third thing is we're going to see an increase in traffic here in the city. We've already seen it, isn't that right? So one of the things that suggests to me is that especially in the established neighborhoods where houses have essentially filled up all of the land, those neighborhoods, those streets are not going to see as much of an impact as the arterials and the corridors around our city. So you can expect Highway 99, 76th Avenue, 9th or 100th, all of those corridors, north and south, east and west, are going to fill up more around the city. And one of the things we need to think about is what happens when those streets become very, very congested, both with commuter traffic and with people who are coming back and forth to their homes. As those arterials, as those intersections become more and more congested, where do people go? They go into the neighborhoods. And as they look for escape from congested streets, they look for alternate routes that take them through neighborhoods. And as I was doorbelling this summer, one of the most frequent complaints was the speed of traffic in the neighborhoods. And so we need to take very seriously the impacts that will happen as a result of population growth in our area. And when we think of, let's say, improving an intersection like, let's say, Five Corners, or an intersection like over at Westgate, if we are going to actually improve any of our corridors or any of our intersections, that actually helps our neighborhoods, because as traffic moves more smoothly through the arterials, the less we're going to have impacts on our neighborhoods. So if you're thinking, oh, why are they spending so much money on an intersection clear across town when, in fact, I need help here in my neighborhood, just realize that some of the infrastructure that's improved in other parts of the city are going to help the neighborhoods. Those improvements do help the places where all of us live. As I've spent time meeting people in Edmonds, frequently I hear the response that they like downtown the way it is. Please don't change the way downtown is. Now, while they were saying that, they were not saying, please don't build any taller buildings. Now, whether or not that's what they meant, or they didn't say that. What they said was, I like downtown the way it is. And then they would proceed to give me some ideas of what they really like downtown. And so what that says to me is, what are some things that we really want to preserve downtown? What do we really want to preserve about our experience as we visit Edmonds? Okay, so one of the most common themes about what people liked about downtown was this was a place where they could meet friends. So they come downtown, there's connectivity not only between one part of the city, the north and the south, there's places to walk and meet friends because there's restaurants and coffee places, and people enjoy that. And the other element that people tend to agree with is the feeling of familiarity that we have with downtown. Whether you describe it as cute, cozy, quaint, whatever it is, there's something about this treasure that somebody already mentioned that is very, very special about our city. And so going forward, as we look at population growth, one of the things that we want to do is be creative about preserving this treasure that we have. So thank you for your time.